Located on Chutes Folly, a small island about 1 mile off the Charleston shore in the harbor, the fort was built over the ruins of an older fortification called Fort Pinckney. The original log and earthen fort, named after the Revolutionary War hero Charles Cotesworth Pinckney, was built beginning in 1797 and was intended to protect the city from possible naval attack when the war with France seemed imminent. It was completed in 1804. It saw no hostilities and was virtually destroyed by a severe hurricane in September of that year. A replacement brick and mortar structure called Castle Pinckney was erected in 1809 and 1810 and was garrisoned throughout the War of 1812. By the late 1850s, Castle Pinckney was part of a network of defensive positions in the harbor, which included the larger and more strategically placed Fort Sumter and Moultrie and other smaller earthworks and fortifications. In 1860, Castle Pinckney's armament consisted of 14 24-pounders, 4 42-pounders, 4 8-inch howitzers, and 1 10-inch and 8-inch mortar. On December 27, 1860, 1 week after South Carolina seceded from the Union, the fort was surrendered to the South Carolina militia by its small U.S. Army garrison, which retired to Fort Sumter to join Major Robert Anderson. Castle Pinckney therefore became the first federal military installation seized forcefully by a Southern state government. 3 days later, the Union's Charleston Arsenal joined Castle Pinckney in falling to the South Carolina forces. After the subsequent Confederate attack on Fort Sumter, the Charleston Zouavre Cadets garrisoned Castle Pinckney. 154 Union Army prisoners of war, captured during the First Battle of Bull Run and previously incarcerated at Liggins Prison, arrived at Charleston on September 10, 1861, and were kept at the city jail until the lower casemates of Castle Pinckney were converted into cells. After the Civil War, the fort was modernized for possible use during the Spanish-American War. Parts of the old brick walls and casemates were dismantled in 1890 to make way for a harbor lighthouse, which operated into the 20th century. Castle Pinckney was declared a U.S. National Monument in 1924 by presidential proclamation. In 1951, Congress passed a bill to abolish Castle Pinckney National Monument and transferred it back to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The island became excess property subject to sale by federal government in March 1956. The island was acquired by the state's Ports Commission at that time. A local Sons of Confederate Veterans fraternal post took over management and care of the island in the late 1960s. Castle Pinckney was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1970. Eventually, unable to raise the needed funds, the Sons of Confederate Veterans allowed the fort to revert to state ownership. Castle Pinckney has undergone some limited restoration efforts. With its location on an isolated shoal in the middle of the harbor, access is difficult, maintenance is nearly impossible, and it is gradually being reclaimed by nature.
Thank you.